Brian Windhorst, kind enough to join us, ESPN senior NBA writer. Your reaction when you got that text or tweet was what, Brian?
Well, there was nothing. I mean, when I say nothing, I had no indication at all. Very rarely are people in my business totally surprised by a transaction. A lot of times we can't say everything we know. A lot of times we don't see all four corners of it. So we'll hear something come out and we'll go, I see the pieces fall in place. It is very unusual that there's a transaction like this that comes clear out of the blue. There was nothing, zero in the world, in our world about this. And I think as far as I believe the people that are telling me, I mean, I reserve the right to say I have new information, but I don't think the players knew either. I really, really don't believe that. I know that that's hard to believe, but that's how rare of an instance this is. And we're also talking about a situation where two in their prime star players are traded for each other. That does not happen. In the history of the NBA, there's never been a current All-NBA player traded for a current All-NBA player in the middle of the season. We've definitely seen star players get traded. We have definitely seen shock star players get traded. We've never seen star for star like this. When it involves the number one most popular franchise in the NBA and one of the most in the world. So the sequence of one-off events here is pretty remarkable.
Okay, but do we know the why? Like, why did this happen?
Yeah, so I know that there's a desire to say there must be more to it. And I don't have all of it. I can't say that there isn't. But I honestly believe the Mavericks came to a decision after really going through a frustrating year with Luka. It has been a very frustrating year. And just to reset that, they're coming off the finals. Luka comes to camp and immediately gets hurt. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know everything about that injury, but I think they were frustrated that he had that injury, and they thought that maybe he wasn't necessarily ready for camp. After he gets that injury, he gets out of shape. Out of shape to the point that when he comes back and plays healthy with the injury, they say he's shut down for a hand injury, and he was injured with that, but he also was getting in better shape. When he came back, he had allowed himself to get more out of shape. Comes back, starts playing well again, and then repeats the injury. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to tell you that was physical conditioning, but I suspect that they felt that they were not thrilled with the conditioning. So they go through a very frustrating year, but it's on top of other frustrations they had. And this summer, he's going to be in position to sign a $350 million Supermax contract. Now, most of the time, teams celebrate when a player qualifies for this. The Oklahoma City Thunder, for example, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has qualified for the Supermax. I believe he's eligible to sign it at 6 p.m. on June 30th. I promise you the paperwork will be in his hands. Whether or not he signs it, I'm sure he will. When he signs, I don't know, but I'm promising you the Thunder are going to fall all over themselves to get this guy locked up for that $300 million deal. Jason Tatum, they were ready to go with the $300 million deal. They couldn't have been more excited to get this guy locked up. The whole purpose of that being in the CBA is so that you have a superstar player. He is outrageously incentivized to the tune of $100+ million to stay with your team. It is basically the Kevin Durant rule, the LeBron James rule, so that those guys will not leave for nothing. And even if you weren't 150% sure you wanted to give him the money, the conventional wisdom would be you give him the contract anyway, so that if you want to trade him, you trade him with the 5 years on the contract so that the player can't leverage you in a trade. That's what happened with Dame Lillard. Lillard signs his 5-year contract, then the Blazers trade him so that he couldn't say, you got to trade me to Miami. They can trade him to the best place, which was Milwaukee in that case. Okay. And so for the Mavericks to do this now, it means that they didn't even want to enter into that contract with him. And it also means that they thought that they could do better this season now with Anthony Davis. That they think that if they did this deal now, that they could make a better run in the playoffs. And so it's a high-level, shocking, and complete repudiation of Luka Doncic as a superstar franchise player. And it results in this trade, which is going to be a historic sliding doors moment, I think.
Okay, well then give me the upside and the downside for the Lakers.
So the Lakers, first off, the Lakers had a succession problem. LeBron is 40 years old. Whether he's got a year or two left, he's on his way out. He is no longer, a first-team All-NBA player. Anthony Davis is there, but he's aging too. And I would say that while I am a big, gigantic believer in that when you win a championship, it means never having to say you're sorry. And they have a championship, they have a banner. And so, but the LeBron-AD partnership, it hasn't been a glorious, unmitigated success. It's been a success. They should have no regrets, no looking back. But it hasn't gone the way that the hopes and dreams were. So they had this challenge of how do they move on from LeBron at some point? How do they get their next star? And I thought that would be a problem for 2 years from now. This falls into their lap, and they have to say yes. The direction of the franchise was not, let's try to acquire Luka Doncic in 2025. It fell into their lap. They had to say yes. I know that there's been a thought, well, was there an issue with LeBron and AD? Was there an issue with AD and JJ Redick? Was there an issue with... No. The phone rang, and they said, do you want Luka Doncic? The answer is yes. And not only that, while you are recognizing that you are acquiring a player the other team is giving up on, they can now sign him to a contract this summer, Dan, that's $100 million less than what it would cost the Mavericks, because he will not qualify for the Supermax. And you get a 25-year-old megastar on a quote-unquote discount. He does have issues, warts, whatever. It's an absolute no-brainer for the Lakers. They had to say yes. If they didn't say yes, everybody in the organization should have been fired. So that's where they are. That's where they are going forward. They are in a different reality now than they were 5 days ago. Their team is different. They got problems. They got to fix their roster. But they're no longer thinking about LeBron and AD. They're now thinking about number 77 going forward.
We're talking to Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior NBA writer. I couldn't help but think of David Stern. Would David Stern have green-lighted this?
Oh, absolutely. Because he saw it as an opportunity to get Luka Doncic into the Lakers for the next 10 years. I mean, I'm hearing from, I was talking to some NBA executives yesterday, and they're like, Jesus Christ, the freaking Lakers, blah, blah, blah. And, and they're like, your bosses probably love it. And I go, you're damn right.
Yeah, that's true.
And so the opportunity for the Lakers to, and this has happened throughout our whole lives, Will Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, forget about the guys they drafted. Forget about Kobe and Magic, Worthy. We're talking about guys that mid-career, LeBron, Paul Gasol, mid-career arrived in L.A., however it happened, and has labeled the franchise to continue its run of dominance. I was talking to one executive yesterday, not from the Clippers, and he was like, man, I feel for the Clippers today. They're about ready to get rid of LeBron. They've got this gorgeous arena. They're establishing their own franchise. They're having this really positive. They're neck and neck. They're about to pass the Lakers in the standings. If they win tomorrow, they're playing here in L.A. And then they get hit with this right hook that Luka Doncic is now going to be a Laker for the next decade. So, but I do think on the whole, on the balance, maybe not to somebody in Oklahoma City or Minneapolis, it's an incredible development for the league, with the belief that Luka fulfills his potential, which is what the Mavericks are saying they don't think will happen.
Bigger shock when Jordan went to play baseball or this Luka Anthony Davis deal?
Jeez, Dan, you'd be better to answer that. I mean, when Jordan went to play baseball, it was one of those things that was so crazy. I mean, people to this day are still trying to come up with a conspiracy theory for that. That was a bigger shock, I guess, because Michael was in his middle of his career, and he went to go play minor league baseball. But this is a bigger shock in terms of the effect that it had. Not effect on the league isn't even accurate. I guess Jordan was the bigger shock, but now we get to watch these players still play. Jordan left the league. The league, was hurting from it. The league, in theory, can benefit from it.
I know you're busy. Thanks for making time.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great week out there.
That's Brian Windhorst, ESPN senior NBA writer.